Hi. I just picked up this book, Ursula by Ursula K. LeGuin, No Time to Spare. And reading is something that is really challenging for me to do consistently because I get really distracted. And so I thought I would kind of create like a win-win situation here. I love listening to stories, and I'm guessing other people do too. And I love reading stories as long as I can. So I thought I would read as much as I could and share it with you, and you could sit back and have a cup of tea and listen to story time if you want. And we'll see how this goes. I know I have kind of a quiet voice, so if you can't hear me, apologies. I'm just recording this on my phone, but we'll see. Glad to be here with you. So I'm starting at the first chapter is a note at the beginning, and this is, I think, compiled from her blog that she had. I think this book was made after she passed away in 2018. So it says October 2010. Gotta get cozy. I've been inspired by Jose Saramago's extraordinary blogs, which he posted when he was 85 and 86 years old. They were published this year in English as The Notebooks. I read them with amazement and delight. I never wanted a blog before. I never liked the word blog. I suppose it is meant to stand for biolog or something like that, but it sounds like a sodden tree trunk in a bog, or maybe an obstruction in the nasal passage. Oh, she talks that way because she has such terrible blogs in her nose. I was also put off by the idea that a blog ought to be interactive, that the blogger is expected to read people's comments in order to reply to them and carry on a limitless conversation with strangers. I am much too introverted to want to do all of that. I'm happy with strangers only if I can write a story or a poem and hide from them behind it, letting it speak for me. So though I have contributed a few blog-like objects to Bookview Cafe, I never enjoyed them. After all, despite the new name, they were just opinion pieces or essays, and writing essays has always been tough work for me, and only occasionally rewarding. But seeing what Saramago did with the form was a revelation. Oh, I get it. I see. Can I try too? My trials, attempts, efforts, that's what essays means, so far have been much less political and moral weight than Saramago's and are more trivially personal. Maybe that will change as I practice the form, maybe not. Maybe I'll soon find it isn't for me after all and stop. That's to be seen. What I like at the moment is the sense of freedom. Saramago didn't interact directly with his readers, except once. That freedom also I'm borrowing from him. Part 1, Going Over 80. This chapter is called In Your Spare Time, October 2010. I got a questionnaire from Harvard for the 60th reunion of the Harvard graduating class of 1951. Of course, my college was Radcliffe, which at the time was affiliated with but wasn't considered to be Harvard, due to a difference in gender. But Harvard often overlooks such details from the lofty eminence where it can consider all sorts of things beneath its notice. Anyhow, the questionnaire is anonymous, therefore presumably gender-free, and it is interesting. The people who are expected to fill it out are, or would be, almost all in their 80s, and 60 years is time enough for all kinds of things to have happened to a bright-eyed young graduate. So there's a polite invitation to widows or widowers to answer for the deceased. Question 1C, if divorced, gives an interesting set of little boxes to check. Once, twice, 3 times, 4 or more, currently remarried, currently living with a partner, none of the above. This last option is a poser. I'm trying to think how you could be divorced and still none of the above. In any case, it seems unlikely that any of those boxes would have been on a reunion questionnaire in 1951. You've come a long way, baby. as the cigarette ad with the bimbo on it used to say. Question 12. In general, given your expectations, how have your grandchildren done in life? The youngest of my grandchildren just turned 4. How has he done in life? Well, very well on the whole. I wonder what kind of expectations you should have for a 4-year-old. That he'll go on to be a nice little boy and learn pretty soon to read and write is all that comes to mind. I suppose I'm supposed to expect him to go to Harvard, or at least to Columbia like his father and great-grandfather. But being nice and learning to read and write seem quite enough for now. Actually, I don't exactly have expectations. I have hopes and fears. Mostly the fears predominate these days. When my kids were young, I could still hope we might not totally screw up the environment for them, but now that we have done so and are more deeply sold out than ever to profiteering industrialism with its future horizon of a few months, any hope I have that coming generations may have ease and peace in life has become very tenuous and has to reach far, far forward into the dark. Question 13. What will improve the quality of life for the future generations of your family? With boxes to rank importance from 1 to 10. The first choice is improved educational opportunities. Fair enough. Harvard being in the education business, I gave it a 10. The second is economic stability and growth for the U.S. That stymied me totally. What a marvelous example of capitalist thinking or non-thinking to consider growth and stability as the same thing. I finally wrote in the margin, you can't have both, and didn't check a box. The rest of the choices are reduction of the U.S. debt, reduced dependence on foreign energy, improved healthcare quality and cost, elimination of terrorism, implementation of effective immigration policy, improved bipartisanship in U.S. politics, export democracy. Since we're supposed to be considering the life of future generations, it seems a strange list, limited to quite immediate concerns and filtered through such current right-wing obsessions as terrorism, effective immigration policy, and the exportation of democracy, which I assume is a euphemism for a policy of invading countries we don't like and trying to destroy their society, culture, and religion. 9 choices, but nothing about climate destabilization, nothing about international politics, nothing about population growth, nothing about industrial pollution, nothing about the control of government by corporations, nothing about human rights or injustice or poverty. Question 14. Are you living your secret desires? Floored again. I finally didn't check yes, somewhat, or no, but wrote in, I have none. My desires are flagrant. I have to get some tea. Hold on. I love the idea of Harvard reaching out to ask if you're living your secret desires. It makes me wonder who read these surveys. Okay, where was I? But it was question 18 that really got me down. In your spare time, what do you do? Check all that apply, and the list begins. Golf, 7th in the list of 27 occupations after racket sports, before shopping, TV, and bridge, comes creative activities, paint, write, photograph, etc. Here I stopped reading and sat in thought for quite a while. The key words are spare time. What do they mean? To a working person, supermarket checker, lawyer, highway crewman, housewife, cellist, computer repairer, teacher, waitress, spare time is the time not spent at your job or at otherwise keeping yourself alive, cooking, keeping clean, getting the car fixed, getting the kids to school. To people in the midst of life, spare time is free time and valued as such. But to people in their 80s, what do retired people have but spare time? I'm not exactly retired because I never had a job to retire from. I still work, though not as hard as I did. I have always been and am proud to consider myself a working woman. But to the questioners of Harvard, my life work has been a creative activity, a hobby, something you do to fill up spare time. Perhaps if they knew I'd made a living out of it, they'd move it to a more respectable category, but I rather doubt it. The question remains, when all the time you have is spare, is free, what do you make of it? And what's the difference really between that and the time you used to have when you were 50 or 30 or 15? Kids used to have a whole lot of spare time, middle-class kids anyhow. Outside of school, and if they weren't into a sport, most of their time was spare, and they figured out more or less successfully what to do with it. I had whole spare summers when I was a teenager, 3 spare months, no stated occupation whatsoever. Much of my after school was spare time too. I read, I wrote, I hung out with Jean and Shirley and Joyce. I moseyed around, having thoughts and feelings. Oh Lord, deep thoughts, deep feelings. I hope some kids still have time like that. The ones I know seem to be on a treadmill of programming, rushing on without pause to the next event on their schedule. The soccer practice, the play date, the whatever. I hope they find interstices. Never heard that word. I hope they find interstices and wriggle into them. Interstices. Sometimes I notice that a teenager in the family group is present in body, smiling, polite, apparently attentive, but absent. I hope she has found an interstice, made herself some spare time, wriggled into it, and is alone there, deep down, thinking, feeling. The opposite of spare time, I guess, occupied time. In my case, I still don't know what spare time is because all my time is occupied. It always has been, and it is now. It's occupied by living. An increasing part of living at my age is mere bodily maintenance, which is tiresome. But I cannot find anywhere in my life a time or a kind of time that is unoccupied. I am free, but my time is not. My time is fully and vitally occupied with sleep, with daydreaming, with doing business and writing friends and family on email, with reading, with writing poetry, with writing prose, with thinking, with forgetting, with embroidering, with cooking and eating a meal and cleaning up in the kitchen, with construing Virgil, with meeting friends, with talking with my husband, with going out to shop for groceries, with walking if I can walk and traveling if we are traveling, with sitting Vipassana sometimes, with watching a movie sometimes, with doing the 8 precious Chinese exercises when I can, with lying down for an afternoon rest, with a volume of Crazy Cat to read, and my own slightly crazy cat occupying the region between my upper thighs and mid-calves, where he arranges himself and goes instantly and deeply to sleep. None of this is spare time. I can't spare it. What is Harvard thinking of? I'm going to be 81 next week. I have no time to spare. Now I get the title, No Time to Spare. Okay, I'm going to do one more chapter. The Sissy Strikes Back, November 2010. I've lost faith in the saying, "You're only as old as you think you are," ever since I got old. It is a saying with a fine heritage. It goes right back to the idea of the power of positive thinking, which is so strong in America because it fits in so well with the power of commercial advertising and the power of wishful thinking, aka the American dream. It is the bright side of Puritanism. What you deserve is what you get. Never mind just now about the dark side. Good things come to good people, and youth will last forever for the young in heart. Yep. There is a whole lot of power in positive thinking. It is the great placebo effect. In many cases, even dire cases, it works. I think most old people know that, and many of us try to keep our thinking on the positive side as a matter of self-preservation, as well as dignity, the wish to not end with a prolonged whimper. It can be very hard to believe that one is actually 80 years old, but as they say, you better believe it. I've known clear-headed, clear-hearted people in their 90s. They didn't think they were young. They knew with a patient, canny clarity how old they were. If I'm 90 and believe I'm 45, I'm headed for a very bad time trying to get out of the bathtub. Even if I'm 70 and think I'm 40, I'm fooling myself to the extent of almost certainly acting like an awful fool. Actually, I've never heard anybody over 70 that say that you're as old as you think you are. Younger people say it to themselves or each other as an encouragement. When they say it to somebody who actually is old, they don't realize how stupid it is and how cruel it may be. At least there isn't a poster of it. But there is a poster of old age is not for sissies. Maybe it's where the saying came from. A man and a woman in their 70s. As I remember it, they both have what the Air Force used to call the look of eagles, and are wearing very tight-fitting minimal clothing and are altogether very fit. Their pose suggests that they've just run a marathon and aren't breathing hard while they relax by lifting 17-pound barbells. Look at us, they say. Old age is not for sissies. Look at me, I snarl at them. I can't run, I can't lift barbells, and the thought of me in tight-fitting minimal clothing is appalling in all ways. I am a sissy. I always was. Who are you jocks to say that old age isn't for me? Old age is for anybody who gets there. Warriors get old, sissies get old. In fact, it's likely that more sissies than warriors get old. Old age is for the healthy, the strong, the tough, the intrepid, the sick, the weak, the cowardly, the incompetent. People who run 10 miles every morning before breakfast, and people who live in a wheelchair. People who work the London Times crossword in ink in 10 minutes, and people who can't quite remember who the president is just now. Old age is less a matter of fitness or courage than of luck equals longevity. If you eat your sardines and leafy greens and wear SPF 150 and develop your abs and blabs and slabs or whatever they are in order to live a long life, that's good and maybe it will work. But the longer life is, the more of it will be old age. The leafy greens and the workouts may well help that old age to be healthy, but unfair as it may be, nothing guarantees health to the old. Bodies wear out after a certain amount of mileage, despite the most careful maintenance. No matter what you eat and how grand your abs and blabs are, still your bones can let you down. Your heart can get tired of its incredible non-stop, lifelong athletic performance. And there's all that wiring and stuff inside that can begin to short-circuit. If you did hard physical labor all your life and didn't really have the chance to spend a lot of time in gyms, if you ate mostly junk food because it's all you knew about and all you could afford in time and money, if you haven't got a doctor because you can't buy the insurance that stands between you and the doctors and the medicines you need, you may arrive at old age in rather bad shape. Or, if you just run into some bad luck along the way, accidents, illnesses, it's the same. You won't be running marathons and lifting weights. You may have trouble getting up the stairs. You may have trouble just getting out of bed. You may have trouble getting used to hurting all the time, and it isn't likely to get better as the years go on. The compensations of getting old, such as they are, aren't in the field of athletic prowess. I think that's why the saying and the poster annoy me so much. They're not only insulting to sissies, they're beside the point. I'd like a poster showing two old people with stooped backs and arthritic hands and time-worn faces, sitting, talking, deep in conversation. And the slogan would be, "Old age is not for the young." Very sweet. The next chapter is The Diminished Thing in May 2013. So we'll come back to that at some point. I hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you again soon.